I'm Alex Hardy. He's Nick Ferguson, and we are those guys here back for the 2025 season, off a little hiatus. We could have kept going on the offseason, but it's time for ball. Nick Ferguson, my man, former 10-year NFL safety. You can find him in the Denver market, national media, wherever you want, at Nick Ferguson _25. Good to see you, brother. What's going on?
Hey, man, it is time for some football. I don't know about you, but I've been anxiously waiting. I've had to go through a hockey season, Rockies baseball, but it is football time. I'm excited.
Rockies baseball probably does more damage to your head than playing actual football did, for being totally honest here. Nick, I know you turn around, put on one of those helmets, strap up, you're that ready to go. So I thought, look, we've got just short of a couple weeks here before the NFL season kicks off. So we'd be doing our due diligence and at least talking a little bit about every team. We're going to preview division by division, making sure that we have all the bases covered. And again, not the most in-depth thing you've ever heard, but from the perspective of Nick Ferguson and myself as a fan and someone that's worked in the media for over a decade. Just curious, Nick, your thoughts as we progress through each of these divisions, kind of how teams stack up. I'll break this up when we ask about each and every team, Nick. A kind of question about how things looked in 2024 in the rear view, what our expectations are for 2025, number two, and finally, kind of how things stack up. So I personally, Nick, think there's no better place to start than with the reigning Super Bowl champions. The last time we spoke on these airwaves, the Philadelphia Eagles were named Super Bowl champs, and it wasn't even close against the Kansas City Chiefs. So, Nick, what do you say about starting in the NFC East and with the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, as they would say, fly, Eagles, fly. And you know what? Here's something that's interesting about the Eagles. A lot of things been said offseason about Jalen Hurts and him not being ranked as a top 10 quarterback. I think that is a bunch of cow chips to me. This team, whether you want to look at it, it's not. But it is led by one Jalen Hurts. Yeah, you have a great defense led by Vic Fangio, and you have Saquon Barkley, and you have those receivers outside Brown and Devontae. But for me, it starts with that guy on the center. I mean, he is the oil that keeps things going. And here's a great thing about the Eagles. They can lean on their run game. They can lean on their defense. And there's a multitude of different things that they can do. And everyone's under this assumption that, well, your quarterback has to throw for these gaudy numbers. No, you don't really have to do that. Just keep the offense in rhythm. Take what the defense is giving you. As cliche as that saying, lean on your defense and then hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley, because this isn't golf. You know, this is a team sport. This is the ultimate team sport. So Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, and in my opinion, they're going to fly this year as they did last year.
So pick up right where they left off, right? Those Super Bowl champs, and they are the early favorites to repeat. One, because we're not original, and two, they've just been as good as you've described. And that was, the major part of the start of this offseason, Nick. This is kind of the rear view portion of it. For those of you listening, watching, those guys, that's us. We talked about a potential rule change with the competition committee potentially removing a tush push, a brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it. I just say ban the nickname. It's a terrible nickname. I don't need to hear tush push 800 times. But it's a play that essentially, if you can't stop it, try to eliminate it from the game. That was avoided. I'm thrilled that was avoided. But if this play is something that teams would vote to ban, then we can just lean on that again. Teams aren't going to be able to stop it. Is that what makes it so much of an advantage for Philadelphia? Not just the tush push specifically, that kind of encapsulates what they are. They were the most physical team on both sides of the ball last year. And is the tush push representative of that? Is eliminating that play all of a sudden taking them out of Super Bowl contention? Kind of, Nick, where this team is from last year and how they look moving forward.
Well, this doesn't take them out of contention, and I thought it was.
Well, they get to run it, right? So that helps.
Yeah, they get to run it, but it's a bunch of hocus pocus with all these teams. And I guess the Buffalo Bills and some other teams thought that, the league should ban this play. It's not safe. I'm like, well, there hasn't been a player that's been injured. Or if you wanted to say that Chris Jones was the only player to be injured in the Super Bowl, why? Because idiotically, he turned his body sideways, exposing his neck. But that was the only player that's ever been injured based on his play. And to me, it's about competition. You don't penalize a team because they figured out a scheme, they coach it well, and the low man wins. I mean, all those cliches. Philadelphia just dominates in that category. I know you don't want to hear the brotherly shove. You don't want to hear the tush push. You know what? Here's what you can say. Fuck it. Here it comes. That's what you call a play. That's what you call it from here on out, because every time they run it is a conversion. Now, the Buffalo Bills and other teams have tried to attempt to duplicate this, but they haven't been successful. Once again, to me, this is great coaching. This is great teaching of the technique. And why, as a football fan, why take out one of the better plays in football just because other teams can't do their due diligence, study it, and stop it?
So the Eagles were at an advantage based on the physicality we've talked about, and moving into 2025, I think it's worth noting really the big shakeup is on the offensive side of the football. And Jalen Hurts' production, performance, the way that offense hummed has a lot to do with Kellen Moore, who was their play caller, who is now the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. This happens typically, Nick, right? Teams that win the Super Bowl, even teams that are in contention to win one, have a lot of turnover on the roster and with the coaching staff. But other than Kellen Moore, this team did a really good job of keeping the main pieces largely intact, re-signing their own, making sure Lane Johnson and Zach Bond are both back. And really, when I bring up Kellen Moore to sort of transition moving forward, the identity of the team doesn't change. They promote from within, and they make sure that they put Jalen Hurts in that offense. They put that incredible defensive line in the best position that they can to win. So specifically with the offense, I just want to get bogged down in sort of who pops up from within the system. Kevin Patullo, who has extensive experience. Now listen, he served underneath Kellen Moore. He also served underneath Shane Steichen when he ran that offense the first time they went to the Super Bowl. He's been lying in wait, and now he gets his opportunity to call plays. And I'm wondering, Nick, about Parks Frazier specifically. He comes over from Indianapolis, and the ripe old age of 33 years old takes over as the passing game coordinator for Patullo. Now, get this. I'm going to feel old all of a sudden because at 35 years old, now the coaches, not just the player, the coaches are older than me now. He was calling plays at 30 years old when Frank Reich was fired, because that's their connection. He worked under Sirianni in Indy. He called plays for Jeff Saturday when Frank Reich was fired. And so, listen, I just say Parks Frazier now because kind of a buzzy name for those kind of offensive coordinator type coaches that could be considered for a head coaching gig a few years down the road. And I'll feel even older when we have, let's say, a coach even younger than Sean McVay taking over, right?
Well, see, Alex, okay, here's where I'll push back on that concept, because I remember Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen. They were all on that coaching staff when the Philadelphia Eagles went to the Super Bowl, played against Kansas City.
And lost the first time around.
Yeah, they went to Indy, they went to Arizona, then Kellen Moore entered the fray. I mean, the offense still operated and with the same level of efficiency, if not better. So the idea of you losing a coach or a coordinator, and two in this particular case, and you lose Kellen Moore, you're thinking, okay, well, this team is going to now do a reverse of fortune. But I don't see this with this team, because look at the personnel. I mean, you still have Vic Fangio on the defensive side of the ball. Right. And as long as you can get pressure with your four guys, you're fine. The Philadelphia Eagles' only issue is in their secondary. And I'm sure with pressure, they'll solve that. But I don't have any issues or concerns with the Eagles being able to put up statistics as they put up last year, even though I know it's challenging to trump the year before. But this team should be okay. Barring any setbacks due to injuries, they're going to be right there in the thick of things, especially in a division where, I mean, your only competition, let's be totally honest, is Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. So I don't worry about or have any issues with the coordinator and issues like this, because Nick Sirianni, he's been there. He knows what the offense needs, and they have a clear understanding of what each guy needs to do. I'll take you back for real quickly. Remember when we saw, A.J. Brown on the sideline? He had these notes, and everyone was trying to figure out what were the notes and
He was
whatever he
reading a
wrote.
book. Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah, to
self
kinda
motivation, the
calm him
self
down
help book.
yes, because he wanted he wanted the ball, and that's what you want your wide receiver 1 to think about, but they found a way to distribute the ball around. I mean, they have so many weapons, running back, wide receiver, tight end, at the quarterback position. And for me, once again, this is going to be one of those teams that's going to make it really difficult. And the Kansas City and you think about the Baltimore, they're now chasing the Philadelphia Eagles because they have playmakers all on the offensive
Right.
side of the ball.
And the defensive side of the ball, too. You talked about the weakness in the secondary, those rookies from last year, Blankenship, and, the one that had the huge pick in the Super Bowl. Why is his name escaping me? Out of
Oh,
Iowa.
Dean, yes,
Yes, Cooper DeJean.
yes.
Those guys are stepping up. It makes a C.J. Gardner-Johnson kind of expendable. They move him to Houston. Unfortunately, he had a huge injury in training camp that's kind of set his season off. But that's the thing, right? You keep things moving, whether it's on the coaching side, um, you know, uh, when Howie calls and they make trades out of the front office, it really sets the tone for what this team wants to do. It's to be balanced on both sides of the football. You talk about not necessarily an addition by subtraction, but you lose big players in free agency like Josh Sweat. You try to make that up in the aggregate and just finding the diamonds in the rough, getting the best performance that you can out of your personnel. It's up to the coaching, it's up to the front office, and really the Eagles are one of the best organizations to make that seamless transition. And speaking of a seamless transition, Nick, that's kind of the model that the Commanders were after. And you mentioned Jaden Daniels and Washington. So let's talk about, in your opinion, the Eagles' top competition to win the NFC East. And hey, we just saw them face off in the NFC Championship game. Look, Jaden Daniels became the 8th rookie quarterback to get a team to the championship game. Brock Purdy had done it, Mark Sanchez, Joe Flacco, Big Ben in the last 20 years. I mentioned those names specifically because, well, Mark Sanchez went to another one, but the other names I mentioned, there's sustained success for those, and I'm wondering if Jaden Daniels and that team can do it under Dan Quinn, who in his second go-around has been excellent, at least as far as year one is concerned.
Well, the Commanders have done a great job, especially in the front office with Adam Peters, who I'm quite familiar with from.
I was going to say, that's a guy, and for our listeners and viewers that aren't aware, Nick spent some time with the San Francisco 49ers, and we'll kind of get into those relationships that Adam Peters has. How about the one he had with you, Nick?
Well, yeah, it was great. AP was great. He's been around football. And just think about the organizations that he has gained a lot of experience from a scouting and personnel standpoint. The New England Patriots, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Denver Broncos. What do they all have in common? They're championship teams. There's that championship pedigree. So he knows what goes into putting things together from a personnel standpoint. But the one piece that was missing, like with so many teams, is you got to solve that quarterback position.
Mm-hmm.
He did that in Jaden Daniels, and then you mix that with Dan Quinn. Like Dan Quinn goes back to that Pete Carroll school of coaching. Once again, when I did my coaching internship with the Seattle Seahawks, Dan Quinn was there as the defensive coordinator. He took over for Gus Bradley. And you should see how the players gravitate towards him. And being able to get the players to execute on the field what you're teaching them in the classroom and do it at a high level. I mean, Dan Quinn can actually do that. And when you talk about a head coach, it's can you be a motivator? I know a lot of coaches talk about being, leader of men, but Dan Quinn personifies it. And that's shown with what you saw the Commanders do last season. And Jaden Daniels, man, everyone's worried about this young man and will there be a sophomore slump? Well, I would say it would only be a sophomore slump from the point of being able or suffering the pressure of having to put up those same stats. If he doesn't put up the same stats as far as rushing as he did as a rookie and from the touchdown standpoint, people are going to say, well, you know what? There's a sophomore slump. I mean, people get the film now.
Yep.
I mean, they're going to learn to adjust. They're going to know exactly what it is that he's going to do. But I mean, think about Cliff Kingsbury, one of the better coaches when it comes to quarterbacks that have a skill set like a Jaden Daniels. So This division is going to come down to Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts. Which team or which quarterback is going to be healthy towards the end of the season, and that's the team I figure is going to kind of win the division. But it's a
Okay,
two
we'll get
horse
to that.
it's a 2-horse race at this particular point for me.
Okay, absolutely. And it's got to be so hard for all the switches to flip the right way in the first year. First year head coach, first year quarterback. I mean, Dan Quinn had his first go around with Atlanta, and listen, they were great up until they had a 28-3 to lead in the Super Bowl. Shout out Falcons, shout out those New England Patriots. But he established a culture, and Jaden Daniels was the one to personify it. So to have that type of success, I mentioned Brock Purdy, I mentioned Joe Flacco, I mentioned Big Ben. They all had well-established coaches, right? We're talking Mike Tomlin, we're talking John Harbaugh, we're talking Kyle Shanahan that the quarterbacks learn from. But Jaden and Dan Quinn were doing it together. But it's far from a two-man operation. You mentioned your guy, AP, and the familiarity with San Francisco. We've already seen, acquiring Debo, just sending Brian Robinson to San Francisco. And they brought in Javon Kinlaw as well, who was drafted by the Niners. So being able to get everything right, and most importantly, have a healthy offensive line for most of the season last year, it's interesting to say, look, they identified quickly that Jaden Daniels is a star. You can win with him, so let's build it around him. The additions of Deebo Samuel, Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, the other additions that they've made, everything went right, and they were ahead of schedule. But on paper, they're better with those additions that they've made, Nick. So are you calling this your division winner? Can they build upon an NFC championship game? Stats are one thing, but they just made it to an NFC championship game. You could argue the roster is better. Is that the standard now for the Commanders?
Of course. I mean, each year for every team, you have to get better than you did last year. And the first measuring stick is in win total, right? And the way you do that is you look and you assess your roster. You try to get better at weak positions. Look at what other teams are doing within your division and say, well, you have to find ways to counter it. And from a defensive standpoint, what Dan Quinn decided to do, say, listen, you already have Bobby Wagner as your Mike linebacker, right?
Yeah, and he's back.
One of the smartest guys in the league, and his durability, man, it's off the chart. So you double down and you say, well, you know what? We're going to go out and get a third down specialist, rather, and that's Von Miller, right? Now, Von is not where he used to be, but in somewhat of a reduced role where you can create third and long situations and allow him to come in and work. This is where this offense is going to improve because they're going to have more opportunities because now the defense can give them more takeaways. And once again, right now, I go back to what I said. It's a 2-horse race, right? It's a coin flip when you start talking about these two teams and not having Brian Robinson for the Washington Commanders. Once again, that's going to put a lot of pressure on Austin Eckler. Can he carry that workload? Can he be that do everything, running back like he was with the Chargers?
No.
I'm not sure. So that may put a lot of pressure on Jaden Daniels.
I mean, yes, I think you put more pressure on Jaden Daniels. They're also infatuated with the rookie Bill McCroskey-Corrett. No, I butchered that entirely. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. He goes by Bill.
Okay.
Infatuated with him. Chris Rodriguez is in for his third year. It's going to be a committee. And for Brian Robinson, who's on the last year of his rookie deal, things kind of became expendable, and they got some value in exchange for, San Francisco needing it back because, ironically, every running back except Christian McCaffrey is injured for them right now. But we'll get to the Niners and the NFC West, probably my favorite division. But we'll pump the brakes on that because we're still in the East. We're talking about the NFC East. I'm Alex Hardy. He's Nick Ferguson. We are those guys. And here's the problem, Nick. We talked about the teams that we like in a 2-horse division race, as you said. I want to do this New York Giants first because, at least to me, they still seem as if they are a legitimate football team whose priority is to win games. But we'll get to our shots with the Cowboys in a moment. Look, the New York Giants, the head coach and the GM are still there. The embarrassment of putting yourself, this time a year ago, they embarrassed themselves in front of the nation with the one and only offseason Hard Knocks, right? But now Brian Daboll and Joe Shane have a lot of pressure on them to keep their jobs, and they're kind of split between 1 foot in the future. At the same time, they need to sustain some kind of formula to win enough games so that they can live to see another day. So how do you sort of wrestle with that? And realistically, are the Giants more concerned about, let's say, getting Jackson Dart and some of the younger players, Abdul Carter going? I'm not actually worried about Abdul Carter. Are they worried about getting the younger players on both sides of the football more run? Or is this, let's cook with Russ and find a way to scratch out 7, 8 wins if we possibly can so that we can stay employed for next year?
The idea with the Giants, win at all costs. All your chips are pushed to the center of the table. This is why you have 2 veteran quarterbacks on your roster, Jameis Winston, and like you said, Russell Wilson. So the team wants to get out fast. They want to be able to use the skill set of Malik Neighbors, hoping that that connection with Russell Wilson will actually turn into better production. And we're yet to see that. So that's kind of where they're thinking things will go, because if things don't go well, and let's say you start out the season and let's say you 0-4 or you 1-4, then the Jackson Dart experiment is going to come to life right away, because in New York, those fans are brutal. They speak their mind. And when you draft a quarterback in the first round and things are not going well, they are pounding the table to get that rookie in. And should they throw Jackson Dart in right away? No. Once again, like I said, that New York media and fan base, they are brutal. They'll eat you alive. So the idea is to throw Jackson Dart a lifeline. If for some reason Russ can't get it done, then maybe you throw Jameis in for a while, and then you allow Jackson Dart to kind of learn from the mistakes from those veterans, and then later in the season, you throw them in. But this is a very difficult situation that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll find themselves in, because they may not even be there to enjoy the fruits of Jackson Dart's labor, because they could be fired if things don't go well.
Well, that's the thing, right? If he works out, then Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll will have something to hang their hats on. But how quickly are they going to want to throw him in, understanding that there are, huge issues that this team has and had an extremely depleted roster? Look, let's look on the bright side of things. They do have some pieces, some units on this roster that are worth writing home about. Are you kidding me?
Wait, there is a bright side?
Tell me about Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, and the addition of Abdul Carter. That D-line is sick, and it is going to be hell. Look, we talk about Jalen Hurts, we talk about Jaden Daniels, even the Dak Prescott. Like, you need a bunch of game wreckers to go toe-to-toe with those quarterbacks. And I think the Giants at least have that.
Well, you know what? Yeah, from a personnel standpoint, did the Giants somewhat upgrade defensively? But I have to see how that comes together, because they are the Giants. And this is an organization that went from the tops of the tops with, Coughlin and Eli Manning to being a team that's kind of in obscurity where no one, really wants to watch the game, even their own fans. So if you're telling me that this defense with this new invigorated personnel can help them change things, look, sign me up for it. When the Giants are doing well, it makes the NFC East a better conference. It's not that I'm saying as though I'm looking at them to overtake the Commanders or the Philadelphia Eagles. No, I'm not saying that. But being competitive, and I think that's kind of the idea that Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen wants. Now, it's not exactly what Giants fans want, because they want you to talk about Super Bowl. This team is not in that window right now. But if the defensive guys can force some turnovers, if the offensive line can actually block and help protect the quarterbacks, now they're in the conversation. Now we're talking being competitive, and now we're looking forward to 2026 and 2027, Jackson Dart taking over, and let's see where he can take the team.
Let's play a game. We'll do schedule. Watch. Because we're talking about have to win games at all costs. Week 1, they open at the Commanders. Week 2, at Dallas.
Ooh.
Week 3, they host on Sunday Night Football against the Chiefs. Week 4, they host the Chargers. Week 5, they get the Saints at home. All right, we could probably pencil in a W.
Yeah.
Then they get the short turnaround, and they get the Eagles on Thursday Night Football.
Can I say, Can I?
Nick, I'm not even done. Week 7, they get your Denver Broncos at
Oh,
Mile High. Week 8, they go to Philadelphia. Week 9, they host the 49ers. Look, that's the first 9 weeks of the season. And what are we looking at here? Jackson Dartine could come in, but what are you going to do? Throw him in against the Eagles when you have to go to their house at the Link? It's going to be rough. And if it isn't, then Brian Daboll and Joe Shane deserve to keep their jobs. I think that's all there is to it.
well, you know what? But by the time they get here to Denver, maybe things would have kind of resolved themselves, and Jackson Dart could possibly be coming into Denver.
No, that's the Russ revenge game. What are you talking about? In front of
No,
Sean Payton?
wait a minute. That is built as the Russ revenge game, but when Russ came here last time with the Steelers, he didn't play, right? So
Exactly. It was still
fans were
Fields.
upset. Okay,
He still hasn't gotten his opportunity to crack back at Sean Payton.
well, see that now you have to pray to the football gods that the Giants are doing well enough at that point of the season that Brian Daboll is still utilizing the talent and the skill set of Russell Wilson, right, as they face off against the Denver Broncos. Because if not, based on the schedule that you gave, that's a murderous row of tough teams that you get out of the gate. And you got to think, if you are a Giants fan, you have to be kicking and screaming at the schedulers saying, well, how could you put this team that was 3-14 last season in a difficult situation of where you put them in? Because they could start off the beginning of the season, that could be like 2-4, if not worse.
Well, let's wrap things up in the NFC East. The Dallas Cowboys, I said what I said because no, I have not succumbed to watching the Netflix documentary about how things used to be and some crocodile tears from an 83-year-old owner who is pleading with, a higher being. Why can't we win football games? Why can't we go back to the playoffs? I know, because you took a check for $50 million from Netflix to make a documentary about yourself, and you're not even concerned about re-signing, the best pass rusher in the NFL. I don't know. Look, I like the addition of George Pickens. This team always has game wreckers on defense. They draft really well, but until they take themselves seriously and until they prioritize football over propping up the Jerry Jones brand and the family, what is there to talk about, Nick? I'll just let you, you can do the Cowboys here for a couple minutes before we get on out of here.
Well, if anyone is questioning why is it that the Cowboys haven't returned to prominence, it is because a little of their owner, right? I mean, when I think about, the owners in Dallas, like Mark Cuban was one of those guys as well. Like an owner usually delegates, he's behind the scenes. He's like, what was it? The Wizard of Oz, right? You only hear his voice. You never really see him. But in the case of Jerry's got to be out front. Jerry's got a pre and post game show.
Well, the difference too is he's the general manager, which Cuban never was. And there's a reason why Dak Prescott is making $60 million. There's a reason why, Micah says he'll take a contract a year ago, and now he will have to be paid more than $40 million a year. Like, this is malpractice. I understand that we're talking about saving a couple million here, a couple million there. That is how you upgrade the roster. That's how you retain certain players that just walk out the door, go to Washington, play for Dan Quinn, and go to the NFC Championship game. That I just, when I learn that football is more important than engagement and clicks and cameras on Jerry, then I'll actually consider this team somebody worth watching. Well,
yeah, but you talk about the wrong person because, I mean, it's Jerry World for a reason. I mean, you're the owner and you're the GM. There's no buffer between the decision making. The buck stops with Jerry. If Jerry wants to know why the team is not succeeding, then it's Jerry. You can't blame all these other people. You can try, but I'm not going to go for it. Like Jerry is great at Jerry's like Deion Sanders, and it's probably where Deion got it from, right? And they're able to promote the brand. It's about the brand. And even though the Cowboys haven't been relevant in about 30 years, I mean, they're still on television. I mean, Stephen A. did a sit down, the guy who kind of makes the most fun out of the misery of the Cowboys, sat down with Jerry Jones. Why? Because it's all about engagement. And you're not engaging your fan base and the way they want to be engaged, which is on the field, which means W's. And we've seen this movie before. Jerry has done this before. He did it with Emmett. He did it with Dak. He did it with CeeDee Lamb. He's now repeating it with Micah Parsons. It's like, we know how this movie ends. We have the clip notes. You're going to wait to get to the beginning of the season, and then you're going to give the player their money, but then you're going to end up overpaying, right? You can't tell me that's great business practice. You can't.
We're on the same page here. Let's quickly stack the division here, Nick. I go same as last year. Let's run it back. Eagles, Commanders, Cowboys, Giants. How do you see it?
I see it basically the same. Well, you know what? I see the same way with a possible flip at the bottom. Maybe the Giants overtaking the Dallas Cowboys. Boy, talk about that sticking in your Netflix crawl if you're Jerry Jones.
8 episodes wasn't enough. We'll see episode 9 when your prediction comes to fruition. Nick, this is the NFC East. You're going to get a division preview from every single division. Hopefully we can tighten things up, but we just get so fired up about or let's be honest, about the strength that the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders bring, because we're doing you a service. That was the majority of our episode, I think, as far as I'm concerned. But now doing a service to ourselves, really. Nick, I want to close things out with a post that I saw you put on X at Nick Ferguson _25. Real talk, if Le'Veon Bell had a food truck named Side Chick, I'm pulling up to check it out. First of all, this is just Le'Veon Bell, like Jerry Jones, stealing engagement. This isn't something he came up with, but here's Le'Veon's post from earlier this month. Quote, "Hear me out. A food truck that sells chicken sandwiches. I'd park it next to Chick-fil-A, and it'll only be open Sundays. I'll call it Side Chick." End quote. That's a great idea, Nick, because I understand it. I don't do Chick-fil-A, but if I ever did, it would only be on a Sunday when the doors are closed. But what I'm interested in, Mr. Apple Cider Vinegar, real talk, Nick Ferguson, you're pulling up to Chick-fil-A? What's going on here, man?
Well, see, I'm pulling up to Side Chick. Remember, Le'Veon Bell said, hey, listen, he knows that Chick-fil-A is closed on Sunday, so you just pull up, set up with the food truck, and you just kind of sell your chicken, right? They got all kind of Nashville hot chicken, Dave chicken, whatever. Now you got Side Chick. Who wouldn't want some Side Chick, right?
No,
so
I'm under the impression that he's just selling Chick-fil-A items on a Sunday. You think,
No.
you think Le'Veon Bell has the infrastructure to get a quality kitchen built into a truck? Nick, I mean, let's be realistic here.
Well, listen, if he doesn't have the wherewithal, he knows someone who knows someone else. All I'm saying, food trucks is a thing now. If you pull up in a Chick-fil-A parking lot on a Sunday, they're not working. They don't worry about who's parking there. You just pull up, sell your chicken, right? And once again, who doesn't like Side Chick, right? I mean,
shout out the Atlanta Falcons, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, right? I didn't get that mixed up with New Orleans. I think Mercedes-Benz is Atlanta. If I'm wrong, just rate, and write a comment about how wrong I am. They have a Chick-fil-A in the stadium that's open for every Georgia Bulldogs game, and then come Sunday, they just brand it as a generic chicken sandwich place in the stadium. Haven't been, but apparently that's the word. Listen, Le'Veon, you took enough hits in the NFL, and then you went in the boxing ring to take some more hits to the head. I just don't see it happen. I just don't see it happening.
Look, man, people are pulling up, especially if you want to do it in the Chick-fil-A parking lot, just pull up to a club on a Friday, Saturday night. Say, hey, man, you guys coming out of the club? I got that Side Chick right here. It's going down. Come get you some of that Side Chick.
Late night coming out when the bar is closing or the club is closing, that's now we're talking Taco Bell territory. Yeah. Now you hit Blaine up. Even Taco Bell hits well at that time. I'm Alex Hardy. He's Nick Ferguson. We are those guys. We hope to be your guys. And hey, if these guys are doing really well, why not those guys? We're going to hit you next with the NFC North next episode. Again, every single division in the NFL before we kick off. What was that, September 5th? Nick, what do you have to say for the people on our way out?
Go get that Side Chick.